All right, so we are going to finish out chapter 31 of the book of Genesis. So, first book of the Bible, Genesis, chapter 31, verses 22 through 55. It is a lot of verses, but it is one kind of main conversation. So, it's a lot that goes on in there. But we're going to tackle it together. So, just as a recap, in the first part of this chapter, Jacob has packed up all his stuff, wives, children, everything he owns, flocks, donkeys, camels, everything, and leaves. He leaves Laban's house while Laban's not home. 3 days after he leaves, then Laban finds out they're gone. So in verse 22 is when they let him know. And it says that he took his brethren with him. He went ahead and got some boys to ride out with him, and they ride and they pursue them. So they got to make up 3 days, and this camp is still traveling. So it takes 7 days for them to catch up. And then they travel. So they travel to 7 days, and they catch him at Mount Gilead, which is where he was headed. And that night they set up camp right before they meet, and God comes to Laban in a dream and warns him. He said, "Look, friend, do not speak to Jacob. You can't say nothing good or nothing bad. Watch your mouth, friend. This my son. This my kid. And you not finna act a fool." Okay? So what he said is, take heed. Be careful. Don't say anything good or bad to Jacob. And that was it. He gave him that warning. He was like, look, I'm not going to tell you what's going to happen because I'm God and I'm going to do what I'm going to do. But I'm going to tell you what you're going to do. You're going to watch your mouth. So Laban gets up that next morning and goes on and pursues him, and they actually overtake him. So they meet in this particular place. And Jacob has pitched his tent. Remember, Jacob is traveling with children. He's traveling with young animals. So they got to move a little slower in pace. They can't just drive hard and like rush these animals through like it's a cattle herd, like a stampede or something. They're moving at a more moderate pace. And so they set up camp, and when they get there, they have this conversation. So Laban approaches him and says in verse 26, why'd you leave? Why'd you sneak out while I was gone? Like, you took away my daughters as captives by the sword. Like, he's like, you kidnapped my daughters. Like, they're his wives. They're his wives. And so he's like, why did you leave secretly? Why didn't you tell me so that we could have, thrown you a little party, had a little going away, get you some music and stuff. We could have had a whole good time, a good bon voyage or a goodbye party for you. And now you've taken my sons and my daughters away from me without telling me. It's in my power to hurt you for what you did. I could do something real bad to you. But luckily for you, the God of your father, he doesn't even acknowledge that this is the God that Jacob worships. This is the God that Jacob has a relationship with. The God of your father said, don't touch you. Don't say anything to you. I can't bad or good say anything to you. So what's the reason why you had to leave off so quick? And on top of that, you had to steal my gods. Why did you do that? So Jacob is like, look, I was scared. I knew you weren't happy with me. I knew you were mad because the wealth that you thought was yours, God has turned and given it to me. And I didn't want to be in your way when you found out I was leaving. You keep playing games. You keep tricking me. You keep changing things. And I didn't want to go through that no more. So I just left. I also thought that if you knew I was leaving, you would stop me from taking my wives and my children. You would stop me from bringing my family with me, and you'd have sent me home alone. And I don't know nothing about these gods you talking about. I ain't take your gods. I don't worship them. I don't have nothing to do with that. I didn't take your gods. Now, he does not know that Rachel is the one who took them. He doesn't know that his favorite wife is the one who's out here acting a fool and stealing stuff. So he says, whoever has them should die. Because I don't want no thief in the camp. If they'll steal from you, they'll steal from me. So check the stuff and figure out if you can find them. Whoever owns it, whoever has it, is the person that'll die for their thievery. And so Laban goes and searches all the tents. He searches Jacob and Rachel's tents. He checks Leah's tent. He checks both of the maidservants, Bilhah and Zilpah, who are given to Jacob as wives and who are mothers of the two women, are each mothers of two of his children. And so he checks everything. Now Rachel knows she has them, so she takes them and puts them on put them in, like, the little baskets that are on the size of camels, like where their little luggage is. She tucks it away in there and she sits on the camel. And so when her father approaches her, she says, "Hey, Dad, sorry for not getting up. It's the way of women right now with me." She says she's on her period, so I can't stand up. I can't greet you. I can't do the things that I would normally do. And in this time and in this culture, women are considered to be unclean. So she wasn't supposed to be in contact with anybody else at this time. That's God gave her a break and she was taking it. Um, and, and so her father doesn't search her camel. And that's where they're hidden. So she gets to keep them because she doesn't want to die for the foolishness she's being part of. And so in verse 36, Jacob is like, "Come on, Laban, you came in here hot, yelling and fussing about how I kidnapped everybody and all these things, and you came in here searching stuff. We don't even have it. Like, you searched through everything and you didn't find it. What did I do to you that makes you feel like you should treat me this way? I worked for you. I worked for you." First, okay, before he got to the explanation, he says this, and I thought this was a slick line. He said, "When you went through all my stuff, did you find what you was looking for? Put it out here in front of everybody so everybody can see what it is." Because he knew he had nothing. Put it out here for everybody so they can see what it is. "Oh, it's nothing? You out here being foolish? Oh, okay. You out here just in business? Okay." Like, he kind of called him to the floor. And then he explains. He's like, "Look, I've worked for you for 20 years. 14 years for your daughters. Another 6 years for the cattle that I have, the flock that I have. And you keep playing games." He said, "When I never ate from your animals. I didn't. I went outside in the field just cooking up sheep because I felt like having a little lamb chops. I wasn't doing that. And when animals were injured, like say a lion or a bear or something came and attacked the flock and there were animals that were injured or killed, I didn't say, 'Oh, you lost this many animals.' I took it out of my wages because I understood that I was responsible for protecting them. I did what I was supposed to do to make sure that you maintain the wealth that you have. I didn't have nothing to do with what God did. I didn't cheat you. I didn't do any of those things. You changed my wages 10 times. You kept going back and making changes and changing things and saying stuff that's wild and didn't make sense and playing around with the rules. You did that." He said, "I was outside when it was hot, when it was cold, when it was raining. I worked for you like a servant for you. I didn't ask you for anything in return. I asked for no special treatment all this time." And in verse 22, he says, "Except the God of my father," since that's how you want to talk about him, "the God of Abraham." He said, "Don't say anything good or bad to me. If God hadn't told you not to come out here, you'd have cut me off. You'd have took everything I have and you'd have sent me home alone. I would have never gotten to take the things that I have had it been up to you. Had God not stopped you, you was coming out here to come take this stuff back anyways. That's why you was riding down here so hot. You was over here trying to pursue me and catch me so that you can take back everything you feel like is yours, even though it's mine." And so verse 43, Laban says, "These are my daughters. And these are my children that they've had. And this is my cattle. Everything you see is mine. All of this is mine." Now, when he says these are my children, it's not because they are literally his biological birth children, like he has children with his daughters. That's not what he's talking about. He's talking about it in that they're his grandchildren. Had it not been for my daughters, these kids wouldn't be here. This is my blood, same way as your blood. These are my grandchildren. They are important to me. I watched them be born into my house. I have watched them grow up, and I've taught them what I know. The same way you fathered them, I grandfathered them. I've been right here the whole time, and you just took them away from me. And Laban got a little bit of a mine problem because he really laid claim to everything. But the reality is, the flock that Jacob is walking away with are the children of the flock that Laban had when he got there. The children that he's walking away with are the result or the children of the daughters that Laban had when Jacob got there. So these are things that came from him. All of his wealth came from the beginning of Laban and Laban's wealth and Laban's possessions. But he's still a little my happy to me. So what he says is, let's make a covenant. Let's make a deal. Let's talk about this thing. Let's work out a plan so that we can walk away peacefully. I don't offend the God that you serve, because I'm certain he is powerful enough to really cause me some problems. I want to make sure I don't offend the God you serve, and I want to make sure that what I need is met as well. And so Jacob was like, cool, we'll take a stone, let's make a pillar. And they all come together and they pile up these rocks. And when they pile up these rocks in verse 47, depending on the version of the Bible that you're studying with, it gives you different names. But they named this place, they named this pillar of rocks, which is like a marker for travelers. It is a marker for them. When I see this, I know what it is. And some will call it a heap of witness, and others will call it a pile of testimony. But what it is we're going to make this covenant, and we're going to stay here over these rocks and make this covenant. These rocks, this pile is going to last forever. Rocks don't just typically disintegrate. They don't get old and die. They don't turn to dust after a while. This pillar of rocks is going to stand here as a testament throughout the ages. Through time, it's going to be here. And so this is a witness to us that outlast even our mortal lives. This pile of stones will witness this conversation, this agreement we're coming to. Not that the rocks are going to be like, oh yeah, I remember when they said that. It's not that type of thing, but it is a thing that you make. Like when we take pictures to remember a moment, when we have like a video of a certain thing that's happening, we hold on to our favorite sweater from when we were a child, or a teddy bear from when we were a kid. It connects you to this memory. It connects you to this promise that they made, and that's the purpose of this. And so they give a mitzvah, and this mitzvah is very common to hear in, I'm gonna say, black churches, because that's the experience that I have. Haven't had a lot of experiences with churches that are not predominantly black. May the Lord watch between me and thee while we're absent one from another. Amen. And that comes from this. It comes from here, verse 49, where it says, may the Lord watch between me and thee when we're absent one from another. That's where the words come from. Now, what I want to talk about is a mitzvah. For a long time, it was believed that this is a beautiful thing, that God is going to take care of and protect us and cover us as we travel until we meet again. It is this wish for us to have a great time and be taken care of and provided for. Typically, when this is used in the faith of the people who stand on this Bible, so we see it in Jews or Jewish people, we see it in some even like Muslim cultures and religions, because there's different denominations or sects of that faith. When we see it like in the Muslim faith or Jews or Jewish people, when we see this here, it is almost like we're trusting that God is going to watch over you and keep you from doing something that's going to hurt me. I am trusting that God is going to hold you and keep you from hurting me. If this was a long distance relationship, I would say, may God watch between me and you. He gonna make sure that you are honest and that you're faithful. And if you're not, God help you. And it means it just like that. If you're not faithful to this thing, God help you. So this is how we're going to continue. We're going to use context clues and we're going to work our way through this. So, excuse me. In verse 50, if you should afflict my daughters or take other wives, meaning if you mistreat my daughters, or if you have any other wives, it's 4 of them, that's enough. You don't have no more days in a week to be splitting up time between other people. You got to be faithful to these women and these women only. If you mistreat them, if you do not give them the time that they deserve, you're not able to provide for them in the way that they're supposed to be provided for. They are hungry. They are angry. They are at odds with each other. If any of this is your fault, so that's how we know that this is not, I'm blessed to see you. I will see you next week, God will. No, it's not that type of thing. is I want God to judge between us. I want God to make sure that he's going to hold you to this agreement or punish you if you do not participate or if you do something wrong, because he continues it by saying, if you mistreat my daughters, God will see you and be a witness. God is going to get you better than I can. I'm not going to be here every day. So I know that I'm not going to be here every day to watch you and make sure you're taking care of them the right way, but God can. And may he do to you what I feel like needs to happen. And so they use that heap, that pile of stones, as a witness to this covenant. Jacob is going to go home, but he's going to treat these wives right. He's not going to take new ones. He's not going to do any other things. He's going to make sure that everything is taken care of for these women and they're provided for in the way they're supposed to be. And in return, Laban is going to let him go and treat him well and not cause any static or problems for him. He ain't going to take nothing from him. He ain't going to treat him bad no more. And verse 52 says, I will not pass over this heap. They basically drew a line in the sand with this pile of stones. I won't pass it for harm, and you won't either. Neither one of us gets to go into each other's territory or come into each other's lands or go to the other's house for harm. You can't take nothing from me and I can't take nothing from you. You can't do nothing to me and I can't do nothing for you. They're calling a truce. This is a ceasefire right here. And so in verse 53, it says, the God of Abraham, the God of Nahor, the God of their father, judge between us. They're not even swearing by the false gods that Laban had and came there looking for. They are swearing by the one true God, because even when you don't know God, you know God. And Jacob swore. He promised that I'm going to take care of your daughters. I'm going to do right by them. I'm not going to come back over here trying to take nothing from you. I never wanted to trick you. I never wanted to harm you. I never wanted to cost you anything. So I'm not going to do it now. And then they offer the sacrifice, because that's what you do in the end. Let's praise God. Let's bring a little Jesus on this. Let's seal it with the Lord. And so as they did, they sat and they ate, and they called this as a truce. They stopped the fighting. They stopped the foolishness. Early in the morning, Laban got up. In verse 55, he got up, he kissed his sons and daughters. So those are the grandsons and the granddaughter, and then the two daughters that he has. And he blessed them. He gave them the thing that they wanted in the beginning. When Jacob originally asked way back, could he leave? It was time for him to go back to his family. They were looking for this blessing, and that blessing is the same blessing he got when he left his parents' house. Hey, God protect you and cover you as you go. You know how we pray at the end of services, until we meet again. Lord, bless him and keep him, bring us back together in safety, that type of thing. That's the blessing that he's looking for. God, I'm releasing them to you. I can't provide for them while they're traveling. I can't be there and watch over them, but you can. So God, I'm blessing them. I'm giving them my permission, my favor, my prayers, my hope, my faith that all is going to go well in their lives. And I'm praying that, God, you seal that to them. So that's what this blessing is. And he turns around and goes home. So Laban does leave them where they are. And that ends chapter 31. So as a recap, Jacob has left. 3 days have passed, and then Laban hears that they're leaving. And so he finds that out. He goes in hot pursuit of them, and it takes 7 days to catch up to him. When he catches up to him that night before he meets them, God gives him a dream and says, look, friend, watch your mouth. Don't say nothing good or bad to him. You can go, and that's it, and that's all. Don't do anything crazy. And so he meets up with them. They had this conversation, and Laban is like, why'd you leave like that? We'd have threw you a little going away party or something so that, we could have celebrated and I could have had an opportunity to say goodbye to my daughters and my children. And Jacob was like, look, man, you played too many games and I had to get out of there. God told me to leave, and leave is what I did. And so Laban is like, but you stole my gods. You stole my idols when you left. And so he's like, well, check my stuff. If you could find it, then the person who stole it needs to be punished. And he checks everything, looks through everybody's tent, all this other stuff. And Rachel is the one who stole it. And Rachel has it hidden in her camel, and it's hidden in like the baskets on her camel, and it's sitting on them. It's like that. I can't get up because it's that time of the month, and I can't move. So her dad doesn't check it and doesn't find out that she's actually the thief. And so from there, from there they have this conversation, and they get to clear the air. They had a come to Jesus conversation, is the way we like to call it. So Laban gets to say, you stole off, and you stole everything you have is mine. These are my daughters. These are my grandkids. This is my cattle. Everything you have is because of me. And Jacob is like, this is my wages. I worked for everything that I have. I earned it. I'm sorry that God gave it to me and took it from you, but you was playing games, and you should have been playing games with somebody that God has favored so much, so as he has with me. And so they continue to go on. They continue to they talk. They make a truce, and they put this kind of pile of rocks, or this line in the sand, basically, where it says, "You can't come to me, and I can't come to you for harm." Now we can come visit so I can hug my grandbabies, but we're not going to cross this line again for harm. I'm going to take my anger and I'm going to let it go. And you're going to take your anger at the foolishness that I've caused you. And we're going to let this go. We're going to call it a truce, and we're going to go and be better people from here. And so they sit, they have a meal. And the next morning, Laban gets up, kisses his grandkids and his daughters. He wishes them all well, gives them a blessing, a prayer, and he goes back to his home, sends them on their way. So we are going to cover chapter 32 in the next one. But I am so grateful always for every person who takes the time to study the Bible with me. My prayer is that you continue to walk away with a new knowledge, and you have an opportunity to kind of go verse by verse with me and understand how to read the Bible, understand how to get what the words are trying to tell you, and that you walk away with a greater knowledge of God. So you all be blessed. Have a great one.